Hello and welcome to the course. I'm your instructor, Nicole Kaup. I'm so happy that you've joined me. Let me tell you a little bit about our course. First, it's recommended that you understand English at an advanced level to make the most out of this class. I also assume that you've already taken my 5 Days to a Better Accent course. There will be some concepts that I talked about in that class that you'll need to be familiar with to understand everything in this course. Before we get started, I want to share some funny observations about spoken English with you. Since English is my native language, I was curious what people who don't know English think that it sounds like. This can really tell us a couple of things. One, it tells us the sounds that are dominant in English. And two, it tells us what sounds English has that are missing in the observer's native language. So here's what I found out. When people who don't know English were asked what English sounds like, we hear things like dogs fighting. It sounds like and her. It sounds like snakes hissing. Sounds like shh, shh, shh. Every sentence ends in s. You stretch all the vowel sounds. It sounds like you have a fat tongue. So many Asians. While this may all sound funny, it tells us a little something about English. These people are describing the sounds they find most noticeable in English. There are several key sounds that give American English its particular sound and distinguishes it from other languages. One of those sounds is the and related R control vowels like R, or, and ear. This explains the dog sounds because they sound similar to a dog growling. The snake's hissing refers to the frequency of sibilant sounds, which are hissing and buzzing type sounds like s, z, sh, ch, and j. The fat tongue reference is likely due to the th. While not a very high frequency sound in English, it is found in some of our most common words, and it's not a sound that's common in many languages. Of course, what you think English sounds like will probably have a lot to do with your native language and the English sounds that are not included in your language. Now, this is a good exercise. Ask people from your home country that don't speak English what it sounds like to them. And then go ahead and post it to our group. Now, before starting our lessons, I have a few things I need you to do. First, print out the whole workbook and all the handouts in the introduction section to the course. Read over the class info sheet, do the introductory section of the workbook, and complete the pre-test before beginning the lessons. Once you've completed your personal word inventory and done the pre-test, and saved it where you can find it again, then you can begin the class. Let me repeat that. This is really important. You must complete your personal word inventory and pre-test before beginning the lessons. You will find them both in the workbook in the introduction section. Welcome to the class. I look forward to working with you. Hello and welcome to the course. I'm Nicole Kaup, English teacher and accent reduction specialist. In this first lesson, we're going to take the topic of word stress, which you learned about in the 5 Days to a Better Accent course, and we're going to dive deeper into that subject to talk about a sound that you need to master to correctly stress words. And that sound is the schwa. Before talking about the schwa, however, let's briefly review the idea of word stress. Let's take a quick quiz. Which syllable has the primary stress in the following words? Now remember, the syllable with the primary stress is said louder and longer. Around. Around. Now the second syllable is the primary stress syllable. Round is louder and longer with a clearly understandable vowel sound. Number 2, system. The first part, sis, is the primary stress syllable. Company. The first syllable. Together. Second syllable. Especially. Again, the second syllable is the primary stress syllable here. Stressing the correct syllable is extremely important in English. Studies have shown that misplaced word stress is one of the main causes of lack of intelligibility in English speech. Therefore, it's crucial to focus on this area as you work to improve your English speaking skills. Now, it's not possible to analyze your entire English vocabulary overnight. But what we can do is focus on the words that are more frequent in your speech. That will include both word lists from the most frequently spoken words and your own personal high-frequency word lists. This last one will be different for each individual, since it's a list composed of words that are important to your life. The words in our previous examples were all taken from the top 500 most common words in spoken English. So you can be sure that you're going to hear these words over and over again. So let's make sure that you are stressing these high-frequency words correctly. In addition to working through these word lists, it's important to learn some basic word stress rules for English. This should help you a lot by giving you hints as to where to stress words if you're not sure. Now let's see how much you remember about the word stress rules you learned in the 5 Days to a Better Accent course. I'm going to give you a quiz to see how much you've remembered and to refresh your memories before we move on to some more important topics. Question number 1, what does it mean to stress a syllable? In our stress syllables, the vowel sound will be pronounced clearly. You should be able to easily identify the vowel in the stress syllable. In addition, the primary stress syllable will be held longer and said louder and at a higher pitch in your voice. Question 2. If a word has 2 syllables and is a noun is a person, a place, a thing, or an idea, which part do you stress? Do you stress the first syllable or the second in a 2-syllable noun? Most 2-syllable nouns and adjectives stress the first syllable. For example, money, movie, college. All right, I'm going to ask you to stop the video right after you hear the directions for the next part, because I want you to have enough time to complete this activity before moving forward. All right, look around you, in your house or at work or wherever you happen to be. Take a look around. Give 3 examples of things that you see. Now, you'll note each of these things is a noun, right? A thing is a noun. It can be a thing, it can be a person. But for the moment, please only choose ones that are 2 syllables. Say them out loud, making sure to stress the correct syllable. Now I'm going to give you an example here. I look around me in my office, and here are some things that I see, some 2-syllable nouns. Tissue, glasses, garden, apple, jacket, You'll notice each of those is 2 syllables, and it's a thing that I can see and touch. And each one is stressed on the first part of the word. So this is what I want you to do as well. Stop the video, look around you, and take a little inventory of the 2-syllable nouns around you and make sure you're pronouncing each one with the stress on the first syllable. I would encourage you to do the same activity in another place. Go out to the park, go to your office, go to work, and do the same activity so you can practice with more words that you're likely to use in your speech. Question number 3. For a compound noun, do you stress the first or second part? Remember, a compound noun is composed of 2 parts. These 2 parts are put together to form a new noun. So when there are these 2 parts, is the first or second part stressed? Compound nouns stress the first part. For example, somebody, anything, newspaper, chairman. You'll notice the first part of each of those, the red part, is the part that's said loudest and longest. Now again, I'm going to have you stop the video in just a moment after I give you your instructions. I want you to walk around your house, your workplace, wherever you happen to be. Make a list of all the compound nouns that you can see or notice around you. Say them out loud again, making sure to stress the correct part, which will be the first part. Now here are some examples. What I found around me: suitcase, toothbrush, cell phone, and doorbell. And again, I suggest that you do the same activity in another place so you can practice with more words that will be common for you in your speech. Question number 4. If a word is 2 syllables and it's a verb, do you stress the first or second syllable? Now, if you remember, a verb is simply an action word. Okay, a word that describes something like run, work, talk, eat, something that is in action that somebody's performing. A lot of 2-syllable verbs stress the second syllable. Not all of them, but you will find a good deal of them. For example, control, remain, and provide. Now I want you to take a look at the top 1,000 verb chart that I've put into your class files and repeat along with the audio files to train yourself to pronounce our most common verbs correctly. You'll notice that these are split into different categories. You'll find verbs that are stressed on the second syllable, which is the most common pattern, but you'll also find some common verbs that are stressed on that first syllable. So I want you to listen and repeat along with me in the audio files to make sure that your brain is getting used to these patterns. Now with this list, I want you only to worry about the word stress, whether you're stressing the first or second syllable. Make sure you're making a distinction between these different levels of stress. For now, don't worry about problem sounds. We're going to work on those later. So just do your best to repeat exactly as I say them. Now that you've got the idea of stressing the correct part of words, we need to learn what to do with the unstressed syllables. We will explore the unstressed syllables and the schwa in part 2 of this lesson. Thanks for watching. Hello again. I hope that you're really starting to get the hang of word stress. It's really important to use correct stress in your words. If you stress the wrong syllable, you make it difficult for your listener to understand you. In many cases, this leads to communication breakdown, since native speakers tend to store words in their memory based on their stress patterns. A word with incorrect stress could be mistaken for a different word, or most often, just not understood at all. So now that you've gotten the idea of stressing the correct parts of words in English, we need to learn what to do with the unstressed syllables. This is where the schwa comes in. In spoken English, there are generally 3 levels of word stress. In the primary stress syllable, your vowel is pronounced clearly. You'll hold it longer and say it louder and at a higher pitch than you would for vowels in other syllables. Some longer words in English have secondary stress syllables, where the vowel is also said clearly, but not held for quite as long a time or said quite as loudly as the vowel in the stress syllable. Now, most words with 2 syllables or more will have at least one unstressed or weak syllable. In these weak syllables, your vowel is not at all clear. You will not be able to tell if it's an A, E, I, O, U, or whatever it is, and it's not important. Basically, that vowel should be quiet, short, low-pitched, and not a clear sound. In this lesson, we want to focus on how to pronounce the unstressed syllable or the weak syllable and what it means to pronounce a vowel unclearly. Now let me give you some examples. We're going to use the words we looked at in part 1 of this class. As you remember, the primary stressed syllable is shown in uppercase letters. That is, large letters, I mean. So that is the syllable that is loud and long with the clear vowel. Each of these words also contains one unstressed syllable. That syllable is circled in red. Notice how the vowel is pronounced in these weak syllables. It's quiet. It's unclear. That's the schwa. Around. System. Company. Together. Especially. Note that there is no consistent spelling of the schwa, since all weak syllables, no matter how they're spelled, are pronounced with this weak, unclear sound. In our examples, the schwa was spelled with an A in around, an E in system, an A in company, an O in together, and with an IA in especially. Now, this is one of the biggest challenges in spoken English. We cannot always rely on spelling to determine correct pronunciation. Before we do more practice, I'd like to teach you how to correctly pronounce the schwa sound. Watch as I pronounce it for you. The mouth and tongue are relaxed. So feel your jaw and everything just kind of lay open. You should feel no muscles, no tightness, and make sure your tongue is also relaxed. Open your mouth somewhat. Not so big, but just a little, midways. Your tongue is low, and it's in the middle, so you want to pull it back a little bit from your front teeth. And your sound will be short and low-pitched. I want to make sure that everything is relaxed in your mouth. How does your tongue feel? Is it loose, soft? Is your mouth feeling loose and soft? Let's try it again. Now let's test your ear to see if you can hear the difference between the correct and incorrect pronunciation. Each of the following 2-syllable words are in the top 500 most common words in spoken English. Each one has a primary stressed syllable and a weak syllable that's pronounced as a schwa. You will find this same chart of words listed in your workbook. So please open to that page and find this chart. And as I read along, I want you to circle either a word in column A or column B. Choose which one you think is pronounced correctly and circle that in your workbook. At the end of the workbook, you'll find the answers to this quiz. But please don't look until you've listened again and again and are sure you know the correct answers. So let's get started. Column A, dollars. Column B, dollars. The second one, problem. Problem. The third, parents. Parents. Husband. Husband. Today. Today. Minutes. Minutes. Away. Away. When you are confident you know which ones are pronounced correctly, please check your answers in the workbook. On a final note, get in the habit of imitating native speakers to pick up the correct rhythm and melody of English naturally. Thanks for watching. Hello! In this lesson, we're going to do more work on training your ear to distinguish the schwa, and then we'll practice pronouncing it too. Let's start with a little quiz to see if you can hear the schwa. Make sure you've located the quiz in your workbook so you can write your answers there. So listen as I pronounce each word. I want you to circle the vowel, or the schwa, in each of the weak syllables in these words. And you'll notice there are two words that have two schwas. Let's go ahead and do the first one together. I'll read the word twice for you. The first one, letter A, is woman. Now I want you to circle the schwa in the word woman. Like this. You'll notice I've circled the A. Woman, woman. You should hear a shorter, quieter sound as the schwa. Woman. Okay, let's go ahead and do the rest. I'll read each one 2 times for you. Letter B. Again. Again. C. Million. Million. D. National. National. E. Police. Police. F. Continue. Continue. G. History. History. H. Challenge. Challenge. I. Thousand. Thousand. J. Successful. Successful. K. Second. Second. L. Serious. Serious. All right, the next slide has all the answers. So if you need to, please stop here And return to the beginning of this section and listen again and again until you're confident in your answers. Are you ready? On the next slide are the answers. The schwa sounds are all circled in red. Now let's go ahead and pronounce them together. Focus on the correct stress. Exaggerate the stress in your practice so your brain and mouth can really get used to the idea of unequal stress in English, which, as you remember, is really, really important. Let's go ahead and pronounce them together. A, woman. B, again. C, million. D, national. E, police. F, continue. G, history. H, challenge. I, thousand. J, successful. K, second. L, serious. Did you know the schwa is the most common sound in the English language? And that's because most all words with 2 syllables or more will contain at least 1 weak syllable. So as you notice, it's a very, very high frequency sound in English. So it's one that you want to make sure that you spend a lot of time practicing. It's really important to stress the correct syllable in words, but it's also important to learn how to unstress the weak syllables. A major characteristic of spoken English is this changing stress pattern. Learning this should be a big priority in your practice. The International Phonetic Alphabet, or IPA, uses this special symbol to represent the schwa, and it's an E turned upside down. You'll see this in dictionaries, textbooks, and pronunciation practice materials. All right, a final activity for you. Identify the schwas in the underlined words. Find this section in your workbook and go ahead and make a note. Above each of the schwa sounds, write the upside down E. And we're going to do 2 for practice here before you continue doing them as homework assignments. Number 1, again, you're going to write the schwa above the vowel letter representing that. If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And you'll notice there are 3 schwas. There's one in the O in solution, and there's one in the IO in solution. Both of them are pronounced solution, solution. And problem, the E, is also a schwa. Problem, problem. Number 2, never put off until tomorrow what you can do today. Never put off until tomorrow what you can do today. And your schwas? The U in until, the O in tomorrow, and the O in today. Notice the pronunciations. Until, until, tomorrow, and today. All of them have that short, quiet sound. This is our last lesson in the schwa sound. You'll find several practice activities in your workbook. Do not move forward to the next section until you have completed all the activities and mastered all the concepts in this section. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Now first, I want to show you the Oxford Learner's Dictionary, which would be my favorite. Let's choose a word, and we're going to input it right in the search bar here. Delicious. Okay, you're going to get your typical dictionary entry that shows you the word, that it's an adjective, it gives you pronunciation, and it gives you some definitions and examples down below and other useful information as well. But what I want to focus on here is teaching you how to use the pronunciation symbols here in the dictionary. So if you focus right here, just below the word, you'll see where it says BRE. Now the blue here is a British pronunciation. So you'll see the International Phonetic Alphabet symbols for delicious are right here. You'll see some special symbols there. That long line there is for the SH. And you'll notice that after that, you have American English. In red, the second entry, NAME, is North American English. So that would be American or Canadian. For both British and American English, you can hear them pronounced if you click on the microphone symbol. So you can compare both of those pronunciations if you like. But what I want to illustrate here is how to actually read these symbols. Let's take a look at the American one right here. We haven't done a lot of work with the International Phonetic Alphabet yet, but we have seen the upside down E, right? Which is the schwa sound, the So I want to point out that if you look at the arrow, I'm pointing at that upside down E or schwa. So you'll notice this word is pronounced delicious, delicious. So that's the at the end there. One more important thing that I'd like to point out to you is the stress marking. So you'll notice there is a little line that separates the DI, and then there's a little line up above. You see it up here before the L? That means that the LI, lish, L-I-S-H, lish, is the primary stress syllable. So this will be said loudest and longest. Delicious. All right? So primary stress is shown with the little mark up above there before the syllable. And you'll notice for the word delicious, both British and American English are exactly the same. Let's try it with another word now. Imagination. All right? We see again the British is the first pronunciation, the American is the second pronunciation. And they both look the same in this case as well. But what I want to point out to you here are the stress markings. Again, we have primary stress marked at the top here. There's that little tiny mark up here before the nay. Imagination. That nay is your primary stress syllable marked here. But this is a long word. It also has a secondary stress syllable. So you'll find that marked at the bottom down here. Imagination. So the second syllable, madge, is pronounced as a secondary stress syllable. It's not quite as loud and long as the primary stress syllable, but it still has that clear vowel sound, and it still stands out more than the weak syllables around it. Imagination. So primary stress marked at the top before the syllable, and secondary stress is marked at the bottom before the syllable. Let me give you another word about garage. Now you'll notice here that British English, the blue, has 3 different acceptable pronunciations. You can see them written phonetically and you can hear each one separately. American English has 2 different acceptable pronunciations, so you can see them and hear them both here. Now take a look at the American English again, and here are your schwas. The upside down E there, G, G. You can pronounce this as garage or garage. It's that last sound that can be a little bit different. Now I'm going to show you another reason why this is my favorite of the online dictionaries. If you look right here where it says English, you can go ahead and switch that to American English only, so you do not see the British English. You will only see the American. So this way, it's less confusing. You only have the American pronunciation. You don't have to remember which one is British, which one is American. You just simply have the American pronunciation for you right there for American English. Right, now I want to go ahead and show you the Longman Dictionary just in case you have any doubts and you might want to check a second dictionary. We can go ahead and do the same here with this dictionary. This is also a learner's dictionary, and you may even own this dictionary. Many English schools, universities, and colleges use this. This is the big yellow dictionary. So here we go. You see here delicious, the word. You see the phonetic transcription, and you see both a red and a blue microphone. The red is the British, and the blue is the American. But the disadvantage to this dictionary is it does not always include a separate phonetic transcription for British and American English. It just shows the one here. So you can't always count on this for giving you an American pronunciation. You may be only seeing the British one sometimes. And then finally, I want to illustrate for you Forvo. This is a pronouncing dictionary. What I like about Forvo is you can find proper names in here. What I mean by proper names are you can find names of people, you can find names of cities, names of states, which you might not always find local and regional items in a regular dictionary. But here, take a look at this. If you see a city name and you are not sure how to pronounce it, go ahead and type it in here. Let's put in Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a tricky word. Philadelphia is a city in the United States in Pennsylvania. So here, Forvo is pretty cool like this. It gives you lots of different pronunciations. But you want to make sure that you've got the English pronunciation. Sometimes you'll see different languages pronunciations. So click on this. And notice right here is your International Phonetic Alphabet symbols. Again, the little mark at the top, meaning that that's the primary stress syllable after it. The little mark on the bottom shows that this is a secondary stress syllable following that. If you'd like to hear this pronounced, you can see who these are. A male from the United States, male from United States, male, wow. They are all males from United States. Oh, here's a female from United States, male, male, and a female from United States. So you can often hear different pronunciations by different people, different ages, whether male or female, and often they're from different places as well. Go ahead and listen by clicking here, clicking here, clicking here. So when you do this, you can go ahead and listen on your computer. Another one, you want to search for a name. How about the name Jennifer? Oh my goodness. And here you have pronunciation in English, German, Spanish, Estonian, Slovenian, and more. Make sure you have the English pronunciation for this. And you'll see some different Jennifers. Jennifer Aniston, Jennifer Lopez. You'll find a phrase here. I'm just going to go ahead and click here on the Jennifer. And I see 3 different pronunciations. One male, one female, and another male. And these are all people from United States. Go ahead and click on that, and you will hear the pronunciation. All right, so I hope this demonstration was useful for you, and I want you to go ahead and use these online dictionaries in your practice. Anytime that you come across words that you are not sure how to pronounce, I want you to check in these dictionaries. And here is one more dictionary that I'd like to recommend for you. This dictionary, unfortunately, does not have any pronunciation, but it is full of all kinds of words that you might come across in English. And if you find a word that you cannot find the meaning of in the regular dictionary, check the Urban Dictionary. You'll find all slang terms, you'll find dirty words, you'll find everything that you could possibly hear in English. Okay, watch out. It can be very offensive though. Be careful, you may see things that are very inappropriate in this dictionary. But just in case you're running across something and you cannot find the definition, you can go ahead and check in here. I hope this demonstration has been helpful for you, and I want to encourage you to use these great resources in your practice. Thanks for listening. Hello again. I'd like to teach you another sound that is key to developing an American accent. Today, I'm going to talk about the sound. The and related sounds are very frequent in English, so it's important to spend some time making sure you can accurately pronounce them. Like the schwa, is a middle vowel. Your tongue position can vary somewhat. It can pull back and bunch up, as you see in the photo, or it can curl back. It doesn't really matter whether your tongue tip is up or whether it's down. The most important thing about this sound is the tongue does not touch any part of the mouth or the teeth. It should not touch the roof of your mouth. The muscles are tense with this sound. You should feel your tongue and your mouth tense. And your mouth is open about midway. Your lips are loosely rounded. Let's go ahead and try the sound together. I'm going to give you a close-up of my mouth so you can see exactly what I'm doing. Er. Let's play with this a little bit. I want you to growl like a tiger. But before we do that, I want to make sure that your mouth is set up to correctly pronounce the sound. So make sure that you open your mouth about midway. You round your lips. Your tongue is in the middle of your mouth. Pull it back. It should not be touching anything, right? And then we're going to feel tension. Like hold the muscle tight. Now let's go ahead and growl like a tiger. Now that is the sound. So whenever you can't remember it, remember, growl like a tiger, and then that's going to help you make that sound correctly. Let's talk now about how to spell the sound. Oftentimes in English, we can't always rely on spelling to determine sound. And with the this is particularly the case. There are several different spellings that can actually make this sound. And here are a few of the more common ones. The ER spelling is probably the most common, as in words like her and were. You might see EAR, as in early or learn. IR, as in girl and third. OR in work and world. And UR in Thursday and burn. So these are some of the more common ones you may find, and there are also potentially other spellings as well. First, I want to test your ear to see if you can hear the sound correctly. First, I want you to locate this chart in your workbook so you can write on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pronounce each word in two ways. I'm going to pronounce it once for you correctly, and I'm going to pronounce it once incorrectly. Now I want you to circle the one that you hear pronounced correctly. Do you hear the one in column A or B correctly? Let's get started. The first one, newspaper, newspaper. Work, work. Water, water. Early, early. Computer, computer. Research, research. Doctor, doctor. Now, if you need to, please stop the video and listen to that again and again until you are certain that you can hear the sound correctly and you have all the answers. When you do, check your answers in the back of the workbook. All right, that's all for this lesson. What I want you to do now is I want you to find the chart with the common words and audio recordings for these words in your class lessons. I encourage you to listen and repeat these common words to make their pronunciation a new habit. Thanks for watching. Hello again. Now there's a lot more to talk about regarding the sound. Now there are many different dialects of spoken English. Standard American English, British Received Pronunciation, and Australian English are the most commonly known and studied varieties. But there are also several different accents existing in the United States, Canada, the UK, Australia, and other English-speaking countries. Now, the sound is specific to North American English in particular. In fact, it's one of the most noticeable sounds that distinguishes American English. So if you're trying to develop a more North American sounding accent, this is an important sound to master. Now you'll find that there are two different IPA symbols that are used for this sound. When is in a stressed syllable, it's written as follows. When it's in a weak syllable, it's written as the schwa followed by an R. These two are virtually the same sound. The only difference is that the one in the stressed syllable will be louder, longer, and higher in pitch. The mouth and the tongue are in exactly the same position for both sounds. For example, in the stressed syllable, you hear work and first. In the weaker schwa syllable, you'll hear the shorter, quieter, and lower pitched version of this, as in mother and understand. Now let's move into some practice of this important sound. Let's try some tongue twisters. Now, tongue twisters exist in most all languages. They repeat the same sound, and they're even difficult for native speakers, but they can be a fun way to practice. Now the following one repeats the P sound quite a lot, but you'll also find quite a bit of the sound in there too. Now I'm going to do it for you. Let's see if I can. And then you can go ahead and practice it as well if you like. Here goes. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. A peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked. If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? Wow, I can't believe I actually did that. Feel free to try that one as well. You can stop the video and try it if you like. I'm going to give you another one. This one's a little bit longer. Betty Butter had some butter. But she said, this butter's bitter. If I baked this bitter butter, it would make my batter bitter. But a bit of better butter, that would make my batter better. So she bought a bit of butter, better than her bitter batter. Better than her bitter butter, and she baked it in her batter, and the batter was not bitter. So it was better Betty Butter bought a bit of better butter. Okay, again, if you like this one, go ahead and stop the video, and you can go ahead and do it again on your own. Anyway, Keep practicing the tongue twisters if that's something that you enjoy, and don't forget to do all the assignments in the workbook before moving forward to the next lesson. You need to have mastered the sound before watching the next lesson, so don't rush it. If you need more time, keep working on it, and when you're ready, move on to the next concept. Thanks for watching! Hello! Now we're going to take the sound that we learned in the prior lesson and add to that. There are several other sounds that are created by combining a vowel sound with the These are referred to as R-controlled or R-colored vowels. Before we start working with R-controlled vowels, let's review the sound. I'm going to give you a little quiz. Tell me everything you know about Where is the tongue? What does the tongue touch when producing this sound? What do the lips look like? How open is the mouth? Name the most common spellings of the sound with examples. Now I want you to pause the video and really think about this. When you're ready, you can start the video again and you'll see the answers. But please pause here, take a minute or two, and really try to answer these questions before looking at the answers. I want to make sure that you've mastered the sound before we move forward into the R-controlled vowels. Are you ready for the answers? Here they are. Your lips are somewhat rounded and your mouth is somewhat open, like this. The most important thing to remember about this sound is the tongue placement. Your tongue should be in the middle of your mouth, but it is not touching any part of your mouth. It's not touching your teeth or the roof of your mouth. The position can vary, however. You can have it pulled back and bunched up with the tongue down. You can also have it pulled up and back with the tongue tip up. It's really not important, just as long as your tongue is not touching anything. The most common spelling for this sound is ER, but there are also a variety of other spellings that are possible. You can find the ER spelling in endings, as in center. You can also find the ER spelling in the primary stress syllable, as in personal. You can find an IR spelling, as in firm. An OR spelling can be found in primary stress syllables, like the word worry. OR can also be found in endings, as in director. You may occasionally see EAR, like in earth, or UR, like in hurt. Let's do a little warm-up, getting your mouth ready to pronounce the ER sound. So here's another quick tongue twister that is full of sounds to warm up your mouth. Lesser leather never weathered wetter weather better. Lesser leather never weathered wetter weather better. Can you do it? Stop the video and try it out. All right, let's move on to those R-controlled vowels now. So several vowel sounds can be added to the sound to create what we refer to as an R-controlled or an R-colored vowel. These sounds are a blend of the vowel sound plus the For example, we have the long A plus as in air. Examples include hair and rare. Notice that as a blend of A and air, hair and rare. The long E sound, blended with ear, as in hear and clear. Long I, ire, as in fire and tired. Long O, o'er, as in for and more. Ow sound plus as in hour and flower. And we have a short O, also blended with the Short O is actually spelled as an A in most words. R, as in large and far. With these R-controlled vowels, a slight extra syllable is added to what appears to be a single syllable. Let me show you what I mean. The word higher looks like it's one syllable in writing, but actually sort of sounds like two syllables. It's not officially two syllables, but it's close. When we slow it down a little bit, it sounds like this. Higher, higher. When you say it a little bit faster, it's a little less noticeable. Higher, higher. Ear, slow it down, ear, ear. A little faster, ear. Sour, where. This does not happen with the AR, however. It just stays as one syllable. Star and hard are examples of words with R. Let's take a break here so you can digest this new material. Make sure to do the listen and repeat practice assignments with the lists of R-controlled vowels until this is really cemented in your brain. We'll continue with more R-controlled vowels practice in the next video. Thanks for watching. Hello and welcome back. Now it's time for more practice with R-controlled vowels. Let's just jump right in. We're going to do a little practice with the R sound right now. Here are some pirate jokes for you. Which letter do pirates like best? R. Do you get it? If you've watched pirate movies before, you know that a sound that pirates usually make is R. R. Very similar to our R-controlled vowel R. All right, here's another joke for you. Which instrument did the pirate play in his band? The guitar. All right, and the last one. What was the pirate's favorite school subject? Art. R. Okay, let's get serious again. Let's do another quick tongue twister to practice the long E plus sound. So it's going to be ear, ear. This one's tricky. Near an ear, a nearer ear, a nearly eerie ear. Near an ear, a nearer ear, a nearly eerie ear. All right, this one's going to be a lot easier for you. Long A plus air, air. Here we go. Fuzzy Wuzzy was a bear. Fuzzy Wuzzy had no hair. Fuzzy Wuzzy wasn't fuzzy, was he? So our two key sounds are in bear and hair. All right, do you understand what it says? Fuzzy means has a lot of hair, like a hairy bear, a hairy cat, a hairy dog. So fuzzy, hairy. Fuzzy Wuzzy is just the name of let's pretend a bear. So Fuzzy Wuzzy was a bear. Fuzzy Wuzzy had no hair. Fuzzy Wuzzy wasn't fuzzy, was he? All right, because Fuzzy Wuzzy the bear had no hair, he was bald. So he really wasn't fuzzy. Anyhow, you might want to try these out, the pirate jokes, and some of these tongue twisters and things with your kids, your nieces, your nephews, and other kids that are around you. So have some fun with it, practice your English. It's a great way to practice and have fun. All right, a little bit more practice. Here is a game. This game is called Would You Rather. Now I know the word rather is going to be a little tricky for you because it has that TH in it. And the TH usually gives people problems because most languages don't have the TH. So I'm going to give you just a very, very quick little review of how to pronounce the TH sound. So the TH, you're going to have your tongue tip through your teeth, like this. Okay? Stick it out. You need to feel the tongue between your teeth. There are actually two TH sounds in English. One is voiced and one is voiceless. Now to produce a voiced sound, you need to turn on your voice. And how you do that is you're going to feel vibration here in your throat. It's very slight, but you should be able to feel it lightly here. If you put it here. So this rather has the TH that is voiced. Okay, so let's practice it together. Rather, rather. You'll feel this vibration in your lips and also a little bit here in your throat. So all of the questions here begin with would you rather. So rather is asking, it's giving you two options. It says which one do you choose? Okay, so that's what rather means. Which one do you choose? Would you rather own your own boat or your own plane? So go ahead and repeat that with me. Notice the rather has an sound at the end. And notice that there are two yours in this sentence. Both of them will actually be pronounced with an sound. Your. And then there's the or in the middle. The or can be pronounced completely with the long O sound, as in or you can also pronounce it if you choose, as the shorter variety, like the Schwa. So let's try this again. Go ahead and repeat after me. Would you rather own your own boat or your own plane? Now go ahead and answer the question. I'd rather own my own boat because I love water and I love boats. Okay, let's try another one. Would you rather be able to fly or be invisible? Personally, I would rather be able to fly. Would you rather live in the future or live in the past? Would you rather live in space or under the sea? If you like this game, you can make up some of your own, or you can find some others on the internet as well. It's a fun game that you can play with your friends, or with kids, or your family. Now let's test your ear to see if you can clearly distinguish one R-controlled vowel from another. Now listen as I read the following list of American names, where each name contains an sound or an R-controlled vowel. Now your job is to decide which sound you're hearing. Don't look at the letters, listen for the sound that you hear. Make sure you have the page in your workbook open that has this activity on it, because you need to write the word in the proper category based on the sound you're hearing. Now here is what the chart looks like. It starts with the name Karen. So that air in there, Karen, Karen. Which R-controlled vowel sound are you hearing in the name Karen? Air, air, air. You're hearing the one that sounds like hair, hair. It's a long A plus air, air. So write the name Karen in the air column in the chart. Let's do the rest of them now. Number 2, Victoria, Victoria. Victoria. Now take a look at the underlined part, the OR. How does that sound? Is that an R-controlled vowel? Is that an sound? Write it in the correct column in the chart. Number 3, aria. Aria. Number 4, Connor. Connor. 5, Jerry. Jerry. 6, Laura. Laura. 7, Kira. Kira. 8, Scarlet. Scarlet. 9, Skylar. Skylar. 10, Hunter. Hunter. 11, Cheryl. Cheryl. 12, Harold. Harold. All right, if you need to, rewind the video and keep listening to this until you're able to classify each of these by its sound. When you're finished, check your answers in the back of your workbook. Stay tuned, there's more. In the next section, we're going to talk about the R sound when it begins a word. Thanks for watching. Hello and welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to review the sound again just briefly because it's going to be our jumping off point for pronouncing the R. So let's review that sound right now. What's the most important thing to remember when pronouncing the Your tongue position can vary, as you remember. It can be bunched up with the tip down. It can also be pulled back with the tip up. The thing you need to remember, however, is your tongue needs to be in the middle of your mouth, floating there, not touching anything. Let's go ahead and practice that sound together again. Here's the sound that Americans make when it's cold. Brrr. What do you call the hair that covers an animal's body? Like an animal like a rabbit or a cat or a bear. Fur. What do you call the sound that a cat makes when it's happy? Purr. Cats purr when they're happy. A polite way to address a woman is ma'am. How do you address a man in a polite way? Sir. Another way of saying yes, of course, is sure. Now, pronouncing the English R is almost exactly the same as pronouncing the sound. There are just a few minor differences. If you remember, when we pronounce the our lips are somewhat open and they're somewhat rounded, like this. When we pronounce the R sound, our lips are nearly closed. You'll find just a small opening in the middle. The opening, when we pronounce the R, is just big enough to insert a straw. R. R, r. Instead of sucking the air in through the straw, we are going to blow it out, however. R, 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 r. You should feel a stream of air coming out through your mouth. Now let's try that with some common words. Really, read, room, reason, receive, result, raise, research, return, remember. Now notice those last three had both an R and an sound in them. So that's a bonus. Let's try them once more. Research, return, remember. Here's a quick note about the spelling. Sometimes you'll find words that begin with WR. In this case, pretend it is just an R. That W is silent. Now here's some common words that do that. Right, wrong, wreath, wrench, wreck, wrapper, wrinkle, and wrestle. The IPA for the R sound is just a regular R. It's not important how we spell it. If we spell it with an R, if we spell it with a double R, or with WR, it's just written as R in the International Phonetic Alphabet. Let's do a little R practice with some sentences that have a lot of R words in them. Just repeat after me. Remember to read the red wrestling book. We received a rather large research grant. Randy, please return to the red room. It's really important to remember to right all wrongs. Rachel had no reason to read the results. That is all for the section on the sound, R-controlled vowels, and the R. Make sure to do all the practice assignments in the workbook and schedule continual practice time each week so that these new sounds truly become part of your speech. Just because the lesson is finished doesn't mean you can ignore these new sounds. I encourage you to practice as much as possible. Enlist the help of friends and family. Tell them your pirate jokes, play Would You Rather with them, work on your tongue twisters, and most of all, spend some time looking at your personal word inventory and updating it. Remember, practice makes perfect. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next lesson. Hello and welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to talk about another very high frequency sound in English that you probably don't have in your native language, and that's the short I. One of the particularly difficult things about spoken English is the large number of vowel sounds that it has. Although there are only 5 written vowel letters, there are approximately 16 different vowel sounds in standard American English. English has more vowel sounds than most languages, and the spelling of those sounds is not always consistent. So there are 2 things you need to do. You need to learn the sounds that are not included in your native language, and you need to learn the common spellings for these new sounds. Now the short I is among the most common sounds in English. Because it is so common, mispronouncing this sound is very noticeable. In fact, if you ask an English speaker to imitate the accent of some non-native speakers, this is often one of the key sounds that's targeted, along with mispronunciation of the R. Now I want to give you some of the most common words that have the short I sound. Now this short list of words all comes from the top 100 most spoken words in English. Since these words are in the top 100 words, this means they are coming up in almost every sentence that you will ever speak in English. So it's really important to master this sound. Now let's take a look at these common words. It, in, is, if, think, thing, with, this, did, little. So have you figured out how to spell this short I yet? Think about it a little bit, and I'm going to give you the answer in your next video. You're probably asking, what is a short I? So let's talk a little bit about short vowels. In English, each of the 5 written vowels has a short and a long sound. Short vowels are not really short, but instead they are very relaxed, which tends to make them sound shorter. What you want to do when pronouncing a short vowel is to relax all your face, jaw, and tongue. All of your muscles are just loose and soft. And it requires very little effort to pronounce the short vowel sounds. Let me just give you a word about spelling in English. When you see a single vowel, that is one vowel, in a short word, it is usually pronounced with its short vowel sound. When you see 2 vowels written inside one syllable, it creates a long vowel sound. Let me give you an example of this. Take the word win, W-I-N. You see one vowel letter, the I. That is pronounced with the short vowel sound I, win. You can take a very similar word and add an E to the end of it. So now it has 2 vowels, an I and an E, and it's only one syllable. So now we're going to pronounce that I with its long vowel sound, which is I. The pronunciation is wine. So notice the difference, win and wine. That's a short I and a long I. So let's talk about how to pronounce the short I. First, I want you to relax everything in your mouth. All your muscles should be loose and soft, including your jaw and your tongue. Let your tongue just lay softly in the bottom of your mouth. I want you to open your mouth slightly, not a lot, just a little. Your tongue should be pressed against your lower teeth, like this, but your mouth will be more closed. Your lips will be relaxed. They are not rounded and you are not smiling. You want to have very little tension and very little effort. So let's just let it all hang loose. And now say it with me. I. I. You feel no tension, no muscles, okay? Everything is relaxed. I. I. Now your mouth should look just like mine. So make sure you have a mirror handy and make sure your tongue is in the same place as mine, that the amount of mouth opening is the same for you as it is for me. Now let's practice that short I a little bit. Listen and repeat. Kids. Big. Different. Notice this word has a dropped middle syllable. It's only 2 syllables. It's different, different. 6, live, minutes, middle. Now again, all of these words are in the top 500 most frequently spoken words. So you will hear these very often in speech. I'm going to give you a short quiz. Find this chart in your workbook and go ahead and circle whether you're hearing A or B for each one that I read. All of the A words in column A are short I sounds. So all of them will have that I sound. The words in column B will have a different vowel sound. So let's go ahead and get started. The first one, leave. Second one, fill. List. Lever. Sleep. Pen. Still. Itch. Feet. Okay, I know I did that fast and I only read it once. So listen to that as many times as you need to. I know you will need to rewind and do it again and again. So when you're confident that you hear the difference, check your answers in the workbook. Once you're ready, go ahead and resume the video because we're going to do one more practice activity right now. So I'm going to read you some quotes and I want you to circle the words that have the short I sound. Again, you'll find this in your workbook. So go ahead and circle the short I words. If you want to lift yourself up someone else. If you want to lift yourself up, lift up someone else. All right, I have the short I words in red. You'll find if and lift is in there 2 times. Let's go ahead and pronounce this together. I want you to repeat exactly as I say it. Imitate me. So repeat as if you were a small child learning your first language. You're repeating everything you hear the people around you saying. Okay, so I want you to link your words where I link them. I want you to emphasize the words that I emphasize. I want you to go up where I go up and down where I go down. Are you ready? Here we go. If you wanna lift yourself up, lift up someone else. If you wanna lift yourself up, lift up someone else. You'll notice I have some written markers in here for you. You'll find a slash mark in the middle of the word showing you where to pause. I also have combined the words with a red underline, the ones that naturally will link together in speaking, as well as want to will be pronounced as wanna. So take a look at that and hopefully that will give you some visual cues for pronouncing this sentence properly. Let's do one more. First, circle all the short I words. A truly rich man is one whose children run into his arms when his hands are empty. All right, your short I words again are in red. Rich, is, children, into, and his twice. Let's pronounce the whole sentence together. A truly rich man is one whose children run into his arms when his hands are empty. Now you'll notice something on here that you may not have heard before. We have what's called the disappearing H. In some pronouns, he, his, him, for example, we delete the H sound when it combines to other words. So notice it's into is. Into is. There's no H sound in there. When is. Instead of when his, when is. So that's why you'll see the H with the little line through it. So let's try it one final time. A truly rich man is one whose children run into his arms when his hands are empty. You'll find more sentences like this in your workbook. Keep practicing, and I'll see you soon in the next lesson. Thanks for watching. Hello again. In this lesson, we'll keep working on the short I sound, and we'll learn to distinguish it from another very similar sound, the long E. The short I is a difficult sound for many to hear, but it's easy to identify since its spelling is generally very consistent. It's almost always spelled with a single I. Let's take a look at some examples. Will, thing, 6, and city. All of these words are spelled with one I in a syllable. You may occasionally find words with the short I sound that are actually spelled with a Y. This is not a very common spelling, but you do find it once in a while. For example, system, myth, gym, and mystery. And then there are some very strange words that are fairly common that have completely different vowel letters that are pronounced with a short I. Now these are big exceptions to the rule. Let's take a look. The word women. That O in women is pronounced as a short I. Women. Now this is the plural, right? This is for more than one woman. For 2, for 10, for 100. Women. Bin. Business. And busy. Now in each of those words, the red vowel is the one that's pronounced as a short I. Now I want to point out the word business. Business is another one of those words that has a missing middle syllable. The I in the middle of the word is not pronounced at all, and this word becomes 2 syllables. It's business. Business. And just a quick note, the IPA symbol for the short I is a capital letter I. Now let's compare the short I to the E sound, which is a long E. This sound is often substituted for the short I sound by many non-native speakers. Most languages seem to have this long, tense E sound, but it is often not as long and not as tense in other languages as it is in English. This is usually not a problem, however, but I bring this up because it is in a few words. We have 3 common dirty words in English that can easily be said by accident if you're not careful with your pronunciation of the long E. Let's compare the two side by side, long E and short I. Both are front vowels, which means that your tongue is pressed against your lower front teeth. Again, let's review the short I quite quickly. Your mouth is slightly open. Your muscles are relaxed. This is one of the key components to this sound. It must be relaxed. Relax all your muscles. You should have no tension at all, including in your tongue. Relax and soften your tongue. Your lips are relaxed also. They are not rounded. They are not smiling. The I is pronounced like this. I. I. Its typical spelling again is one single I. Now let's compare that to the long E. The IPA symbol for the long E is a lowercase I. Notice in this sound your mouth is almost closed. Your muscles are all very tense. All of your jaw, your tongue is tight and tense. The lips are spread into a smile. The typical spellings for this sound are EE, EA, and a Y at the end of words. So let me give you a quick example between the two. The first one, I. Take a look at my face and how relaxed it is and how low pitched that sound is. I. Now take a look at the long E. Notice my face. E. You very clearly see a big smile. You see a lot of tension in my face. And it sounds higher pitched. It's a longer sound. So E as compared to I. E. The mouth position is similar, but the huge difference here is relaxed versus tense. Now I want to do a side-by-side comparison of very similar words. The only difference in these words is the vowel sound. The words in the left-hand column all have short I's. The words in the right-hand column have long E. Now take a look at my mouth and listen as I say each pair of words so you can see and hear the difference. It, eat. It, eat. Notice the difference in my mouth opening? It is very subtle. Eat is much larger. It sounds longer as well. Bid, bead. Bid, bead. Fill, feel. Fill, feel. Tin, teen. Tin, teen. Now I want to warn you about those dirty words. Don't accidentally say something you don't mean to say. So the ones with the little star next to them are all bad words in English. All right, so let's be prepared. But where the non-native speaker tends to get into trouble here is not pronouncing the long E long enough and tense enough for the native speaker to hear the difference between these words. So here our problem is actually with the long E sound, which most of you have in your native language. But remember, the English version tends to be tenser and longer. So let's go ahead and do them together. Pardon my language. Sometimes in English we actually say, pardon my French, when we say a dirty word. It's kind of a funny expression, but pardon my French. Let's go ahead and do the words side by side. The first one, the bad word, bitch. Bitch. The good word, beach. Beach. Lengthen that. Make sure there's a lot of tension in your mouth. Beach. Beach. All right, back to the bad word. Shit. Shit. And the good word, sheet. Sheet. Lengthen that a lot. Sheet. Bad word, piss. Piss. Good word, peace. Peace. So I hope in each of those you've actually noticed visually what's happening in my mouth and face. You'll notice for those long E words, you're seeing a lot larger mouth opening. You're seeing my teeth a lot more. Okay, and that is tension that's in my muscles, my face muscles, and my tongue muscle as well. Good luck with those words. Now let's do some more auditory discrimination. So we're training your ear to hear the difference between these two sounds. So I have several sentences now for you for practice, and each sentence has two very similar words inside them. All right, so you circle which one you hear, whether it's the first or the second. The first ones all have a short I sound, I. The second one has a long E sound. So which do you hear? I need some bins. I need some bins. He beat his opponent. He beat his opponent. Don't touch my heel. Don't touch my heel. He had his will redone. He had his will redone. My Tim is amazing. My Tim is amazing. Do you want these? Do you want these? Rewind the video and keep listening until you're confident you have the correct answers. This is going to be difficult to hear. You will need to listen to it again and again and again, and then check your answers in the answer key. If you got any wrong, listen again. This can definitely be a hard sound to distinguish if you're not used to it. Don't give up. Keep practicing. A little bit more practice for you on this sound. I want you to write in the correct IPA symbol above the short I in the long E words. Let me give you some examples here. Please sit in the middle seat. Please sit in the middle seat. All right, please has a long E, so you're going to write a lowercase I. Lowercase I, again, is the IPA symbol for E. The uppercase I, the big I, is the IPA symbol for I, the short I. So please is E, it's a long E. Sit is a short I. In is a short I. Middle is a short I. And seat is a long E. Let's do another. The team will eat at 6 in the evening. The team will eat at 6 in the evening. Team is a long E. Will is a short I. Eat is a long E. 6 is a short I. In is a short I. Eve is a long E. And ning is a short I. You'll find more sentences like this in the workbook. Keep practicing, and I'll see you soon in the next lesson. Thanks for watching. Hello again. In this last lesson on the short I want to briefly mention the short I used as a schwa in case you run into it when you're looking up words in the dictionary. Remember how we use the schwa sound in weak syllables? I'd like to talk a little bit more about weak syllables in this lesson and how the short I figures into this. The weak syllables in words are generally pronounced with a shorter, quieter, and unclear vowel. Most often, the vowel is a schwa sound, but it can also be a short I in some cases, since the short I is also a relaxed and relatively quiet sound. What tends to happen is weak syllables spelled with I tend to use the short I sound rather than the schwa. Weak syllables spelled with an E can be pronounced either as a short I or a schwa. You could see either depending on which dictionary you look at. Now it's important to note that the actual pronunciation of the weak syllable needs to be quiet, short, and unclear. It's not really important whether you use a schwa or a short I in this syllable. However, what is important is that the syllable not stand out. The vowel sound should not be identifiable. We want to make sure that the primary and secondary stressed syllables are heard clearly, and we don't want the weak syllables interfering with that. Let's do a little practice. Notice the weak syllables and their pronunciation. Foreign. The weak syllables are all circled in red here. Foreign, foreign. Hundred, hundred. Decision, decision. Strategy, strategy. Significant, significant. So for each of those words, they all have a short I sound as the schwa, since they're written with either an I or an E in those weak syllables. But it's really not important. You could use a schwa sound as well. You could use an or an I, since those sounds are very close together. They're weak and they're quiet. That's what's important. Now let's do a little practice with this. I'm going to give you a couple of quotes by famous people. I want you to identify the weak syllables in the underlined words. Above the underlined word, I want you to write the IPA symbol for either the schwa or the short I, according to the pronunciation. Here goes. This quote was said by Amelia Earhart. The most difficult thing is the decision to act. The rest is merely tenacity. Difficult. Difficult has a short I in the middle. Difficult. The weak syllable is the middle one. Decision has two weak syllables, the first one and the last. The first one is spelled with an E, so you can choose to use a schwa or a short I in that syllable. The second one is pronounced in, decision, decision. So that is a short I sound. Tenacity also has two weak syllables, the first and the last. The first one can be pronounced either as a schwa or a short I since it's spelled with an E, and the last one will likely be pronounced as a short I since it's spelled with an I. Let's go ahead and say this one together now. The most difficult thing is the decision to act. The rest is merely tenacity. Let's try one more. So again, take a moment to make some notes above the underlined words. Do you think that you'll use a schwa or a short I for those weak syllables? We can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light. This was said by Plato. And here are your answers. Let's go ahead and say it together. We can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light. Again, we've come to the end of another section. Congratulations! You're halfway through the course. Make sure to complete all the assignments in the workbook, particularly the one focusing on your personal word list. Do not move on to the next section until you have mastered all the sounds in this lesson. Thanks for watching. Hello and welcome back. In this lesson, I'm going to teach you how to correctly pronounce the L sound in different places in words and train your brain to hear the difference between L and R sounds. R and L sounds are often confused by non-native English speakers. Even if you think they're not a problem for you, you very well may find them challenging in certain positions. For example, the L at the end of words tends to be mispronounced by most non-native speakers. Look at the tongue position for L. It looks very different from the R tongue. The most important difference is that for the L, the tongue touches the roof of the mouth, just behind the upper front teeth. Compare the two pictures of how to pronounce these sounds. Notice that tongue position. For the L, the tongue is touching the roof of the mouth. For R, if you remember, the tongue does not touch any part of the mouth. You can very clearly see the distinction here. Let me illustrate both the L and the R tongue positions with my mouth. First, I'll illustrate the L. La, la. You very clearly see how my tongue touches the alveolar ridge, which is the bony part of the mouth just behind your upper front teeth. It's right here. Now let me illustrate the R sound for you again. We've done the R several times now. If you remember, the most important part about the R is that your tongue is not touching any part of your mouth. It should not be touching the roof of your mouth or your teeth. Let me illustrate that for you right now. Ra, ra, ra. Notice how my tongue is hovering in the middle of my mouth, not touching anything. Take a look also at the lip position. The lips for the L are spread and are loose. La, la. Now let's look at the lips for the R sound. Ra, ra. They are round. They look like I'm getting ready to kiss somebody, right? Ra, ra. Very different. Let's take a look at some common words beginning with the L sound. Now, if you remember, I take all of your words from the top 500 most frequent words in English. So these are words that you are likely to use frequently. Live, left, light, love, large, later, long, and learn. Let's do a bit of auditory discrimination. We've done this before. You know how it works. I will say one of the two words. You will circle the one that you hear. Circle either column A or column B. All the column A words begin with L. All the column B words begin with R. Take a moment to locate this page in your workbook before I begin. Right, the first one. Right. Lane. Lick. Rake. Wrist. Lack. Lead. Rate. Now I did those very quickly, and I know you might want to go back and listen a few more times to make sure that you've got it right. So go ahead and stop here if you need to and rewind. We're going to do another auditory discrimination activity, this time in sentences. In each sentence, you'll see a pair of words. Their only difference is whether they are an L sound or an R sound at the beginning. Circle the one that you hear me say. Number 1. It's the long one. The company rent me the car for the weekend. Don't sit on my wrap. It's a really long load. It's next to the rock. Now don't forget to check your answers in the workbook for both of these practice activities. If you've gotten any wrong, make sure you go back and listen again until you can hear it. By the way, how are you doing on the song assignments? I hope you're making time to sing every day. I find singing the most effective way to effortlessly improve your overall oral English skills. Keep working on it. It will really pay off. Thanks for listening. Hello again. Now that you're comfortable pronouncing the L at the beginning of words, it's time to look at the L sound in other positions. Many English learners think that the L is easy to pronounce. If you have the L in your language, you likely assume it's the same L as in English. Well, you might partially be correct. The L in your language is probably what we call the light L. But there's also a second type of L sound in English that's referred to as the dark L. But first, let's do a little L sound warm-up with your mouth. Just repeat after me. The line on the left is the least long. Now remember, for the L sound, your tongue tip should be touching just behind your upper front teeth, like this. Line, line, line. Number 2. At last, Larry left with his large dog. Three. Let me help you with that loose lever. 4. I love living large. 5. The last leader had a long life. So how did you do with those? Are you comfortable with those L's at this point? Well, I hope so. Once you are comfortable with the light L, we're going to move on to talk about another version of this L, which is the dark L. We use the light L, which we've just been practicing, before vowel sounds. Notice here, with these words, we have the L and then a vowel after it. You'll notice I have the notation LV, which L is for the L sound and V is for vowel. So each of these words is a light L. Later, left, and only. Now the dark L is an L that we use after vowel sounds. And you'll see that I have the notation VL, V is vowel, and L is the L sound. So all of these words have a slightly different type of L. Cool, beautiful, also, old, and help. In just a moment, I'm going to show you how to pronounce this dark L. Do you recall the tongue position for the L? If you remember, the tip of the tongue touches the alveolar ridge, which is the bony part of the roof of your mouth just behind your upper front teeth, right here. la, la. You should be able to feel a bony ridge right behind your teeth. Now the dark L, we're going to have the tongue tip in the same position, but we also need to raise the back of the tongue. La, la, la. You see how that's a little bit different? So that is easier said than done to raise the back of your tongue, correct? So instead of just trying to raise the back of the tongue, I'm going to give you a couple of easy tricks for correctly pronouncing this dark L sound. Choose whichever one is easiest for you. The easiest way, I believe, is to flatten. Make your tongue flat and hold the whole tongue firmly against the roof of your mouth, with the tip touching the inside of your front teeth, like this. La, la, la. You see the tongue is firmly placed up there and I close my mouth. An alternate way to do this is to stick your tongue out like you are pronouncing the TH and then bite it like this. Either way will work for you because the idea is we need to raise the back of the tongue in addition to the front in order to correctly pronounce this dark L. Another thing we need to do is we need to hold that dark L longer. Let's practice a bit. Here are some common words that have a dark L. Will. And then go ahead and follow along with me. Make sure your tongue is firmly placed on the top of your mouth. Will. Will. Tell. Almost. Else. Until. Really. Couple. Control. Wonderful. International. Now the spelling of the L is very consistent. You will either see L or double L. And the IPA for both the light and the dark L is spelled with a lowercase l. All right, let's do a little bit of auditory discrimination. You know the drill. Just circle the one you hear. Circle the one in A or in B. I'm going to just say it once, so it's going to go by quickly. Call. Pour. Tear. Deal. Wire. Litter. Saddle. Level. As usual, listen again and again until you're satisfied and then check your answers in the workbook. If you've gotten anything wrong, go back and listen again. Thanks for watching. Hello and welcome back. The L is more complicated than you thought, isn't it? Well, there's one more variation we need to talk about, the syllabic L. But before getting into the syllabic L, let's do a bit of practice with the dark L. Just repeat after me with these sentences. I'll tell the little girl. And if you remember, that dark L, you need to have your tongue pressed firmly to the roof of your mouth, with the tip touching your upper front teeth. Like this. Tell, tell. I'll tell the little girl. I'm still not able to sell the ball. Several federal agents will tell all. The social couple fell in love. Are we able to control the social and political problems? All national and international agents are on call. Now it's time to talk about the syllabic L. Remember our controlled vowels and how they seem to almost add an extra syllable? As in ear. Sounds like ear, ear. Right? The word is one syllable, but it almost stretches into two. Ear. And the same happens with more, more. A similar thing happens with the L. So when the L follows a long vowel, we almost add an extra syllable. Now a long vowel is a vowel that is pronounced like the name of its alphabet letter. So A, E, I, O, U. When you hear those sounds, the L after it is going to almost add an extra syllable. For example, sail, real, while, whole, school. As you can see, these words are written as one syllable, but pronounced is almost two when we say them slowly. Take a look at sail. Sail. Real. While. Whole. School. Here are some more syllabic L words in the top 1,000 most common words in spoken English. Just repeat after me. Child. Roll. Oil. Rule. Deal. Goal. Fail. Style. World. Girl. Now let's try the syllabic L in sentences. Just repeat after me. How do you feel? He's the real deal. There's a sale at Whole Foods Market. It happened while you were at school. Smile, and the whole world smiles with you. That's all for the L sound. But don't go away. I'm going to teach you some more important sounds and little-known pronunciation information in the next sections. And as always, don't forget to complete all of your assignments in the workbook before moving forward to the next section. Thanks for watching. Hello and welcome back. Today we are going to talk about word endings. Now, word endings are a really important part of English that's often overlooked by non-native English speakers. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about the pronunciation of a really common ending in English, and that's the ED. As you know, regular past tense verbs end in ED in English. But don't forget that some adjectives also end in ED. Native speakers may understand what you say if you leave off or mispronounce the ED ending, but they also may get the impression that your command of English is much lower than it really is. And that's not a good thing. You want to make sure you're projecting your most competent and confident self when speaking to others, especially with regards to your career. Did you know that there are 3 different ways to pronounce the ED endings? And you can't just choose whichever pronunciation you like. You need to know when each one is appropriate. Now listen as I tell you a story. Pay close attention to the pronunciation of the underlined words ending in ed. What does the ed sound like? I was heading into the local post office when I saw a young woman who had gone to school with my son. On her hip was her little daughter. After talking for a few minutes, she shared a story of her high school days with my son, and we both smiled. Just then, her little girl pointed up to the heavy folds of wrinkles around my eyes. "What are those?" she asked. I smiled again and said they were laugh lines. She looked at me for a second and then said, "You must laugh a lot." On my way home, that funny, enlightening moment stayed in my mind. Yes, I thought to myself, I have laughed a lot over the years. I have smiled a lot too. I have been blessed. And if my heavy wrinkles are a sign of that, then it's a sign I'm pleased to share with everyone I meet. Stop and replay the video until you're sure you can describe the pronunciation of the ed words. Before analyzing the pronunciation of these ed endings, however, I want to briefly review with you the concept of syllables. So what is a syllable? Well, a syllable includes only one vowel sound in English. Do not confuse sounds with written letters, because in English we can use two written vowel letters, but that may only be one sound. Take a look at this example. The words ran and rain. Both are only one syllable words and have only one vowel sound. Ran has the a sound and it's spelled with one single a. Rain has an a sound and it's spelled ai. So you'll find that there are two written vowel letters in rain, but only one vowel sound. So each of these words is a one-syllable word. Here are some more examples. The word dog has one vowel sound, the ah, so it's a one-syllable word. The word boy is a one vowel sound word, but it has two written vowel letters, oy pronounced oi, so it is also one syllable. The word window has two vowel sounds and makes two separate syllables. Win, do. You hear I, o, so two syllables. One more example, the word remember. Remember has three vowel sounds, therefore three syllables. You hear e, remember, three syllables. So I want to take a look at each of the different ed ending words from the story I just read you. And I want you to tell me how many syllables you hear in each of these words. Now the first ed ending word was shared. Shared. This one has one syllable. It may look like it should have two syllables, but in fact we only pronounce the one vowel sound, air. Shared. Smiled. Smiled. Again, there's only one vowel sound, I. This one's a little bit different. Pointed. Pointed. In this one, we have two syllables. You hear oi in the first syllable, and you hear ed in the second, pointed. Asked. Asked. One syllable, a. Looked. Looked. One syllable, stayed, stayed. One syllable, A. Laughed, laughed. One syllable, A. Blessed, blessed. One syllable, E. Pleased, pleased. And again, only one syllable, E. In most cases, the E in the ED is silent. So, what about that D sound in the ED ending? How does that sound? Let's take a look. In shared, the D in the ED sounds like a D, sounds like D. Shared, shared. So just add that D to the R. Shared, shared. In smiled, it sounds exactly the same, correct? Sounds like D. Smiled, smiled. How about this one? Pointed. The ED is fully pronounced here. Ed. Pointed, pointed. Sounds like ed. Also ending in D. Asked, asked. Here you hear something a little bit different. The ED ending sounds like a T, sounds like t, t. Asked, asked, asked. Looked, looked. Did you hear it again? It's a T. Looked, looked, looked. You also notice there's a puff of air coming from my mouth with the ED sound being a T. Looked. Stayed, stayed. Again, this one has a D ending. Stayed. Laughed, laughed. Again, you hear that t, t, that puff of air. Laughed. Blessed, blessed. Again, sounds like t, T. Pleased, pleased, pleased. This one sounds like D, a D ending. Pleased. So there are actually 3 different possible pronunciations for the ED ending. It can be fully pronounced in some words like pointed. It can be pronounced as D with the E being silent, like in shared, smiled, stayed, and pleased. It can also be pronounced as T with the E being silent as well, like in the words asked, looked, laughed, and blessed. In the next video, you'll learn how to know when to use each of these different pronunciations. Before proceeding, have a look at the Big Bang Theory video clip and write down all the ED ending words that you hear. Next to each word, write whether you hear a D, T, or full ED pronunciation for each word ending in ED. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Hello again. In this lesson, we're going to continue talking about the ED ending. As you learned in the prior video, there are actually 3 different pronunciations of the ED ending. It's occasionally pronounced fully as ed, adding the extra syllable to the word. But more often, the E in the ED is silent, and it is pronounced as D or T. In this lesson, you're going to learn when to use each pronunciation so your English sounds correct and smart. The pronunciation of the ED ending is dictated by the last sound of the word before adding the ED. Rule number 1, if the word ends in a T or a D, pronounce the ED completely, adding an extra syllable to the word. Here are some common words that end with T. Start. You'll pronounce it started. There should be 2 syllables because this word ends in a T. Wait. Waited. Expect. Expected. And then some common words that end in D. Need. Needed. Again, words ending in D will fully pronounce the ED endings as well. Decide. Decided. Rule number 2. If the word ends in a voiced sound, you'll pronounce the ED ending as D, since D is also a voiced sound. With voiced sounds, you'll hear your vocal cords or larynx vibrate. Now you can find your vocal cords right here in the hollow of your throat. If you feel it with your fingers, you'll notice that it vibrates when you produce voiced sounds. Now let's do a little bit of practice here. I want to illustrate the voice sounds using the ED ending words you found from the story. Taking the first one, share, you'll notice that the R ending sound on that word is a voice sound. The R, if you feel here in your throat, you'll notice it vibrates. Try that with me now. R, R, R. The L is also a voice sound. L, L. Do you feel that vibration here in your throat? It's as if there's a little motor turned on right there. Vowel sounds are also voiced. You found the word stay in the story I read for you. So notice that A ending, you'll feel it also vibrate here, as you will on the word please. Please. That Z ending is also voiced. So Z, Z. If you're not familiar with the Z sound, that's something that I'm going to teach you in our next lesson. So don't worry about it at this point. You can learn all about the S and the Z in our next section. So let's go through each of these words and pronounce them with their ED endings. So when share adds an ED, it sounds like shared. Smile, smiled. Stay, stayed. And please, pleased. Again, note that the E's are silent there. Just pronounce the D, not ed, but D. The largest number of endings will be voiced. So most often you're going to pronounce your ED ending as D, with the E being silent again. The following sounds in English are all voiced. You'll notice there are a lot of voiced sounds in English. B, G, J, L, M, N, R, V, Z, and all of the vowel sounds as well are voiced. So here are some words that are included in our top 500 most common words in spoken English that have voiced endings. A word that ends in B is describe. So if we add an ED ending to that, it sounds like described. G, hug, hugged. J, change, changed. Manage, managed. L, call, called. Control, controlled. And there are more. M, seem, seemed. Name, named. N, happen, happened. Plan, planned. Offer, offered. Require, required. Believe, believed. Save, saved. Raise, raised. Realize, realized. And then words ending in vowel sounds, as in show, showed. Agree, agreed. The sounds that have the little star next to them are the most common voiced endings, so these are ones that you'll want to focus most on in your practice. Notice that the N sound, the R sound, and the vowels all have a large number of words ending in those sounds. And our third rule, if the word ends in a voiceless sound, pronounce the ED as T, since T is also a voiceless sound. With voiceless sounds, there is no movement or sound from your vocal cords. There is nothing felt here. There is only air passing through your mouth. Take a look at these as examples. The word ask, k, k. If you say the K and you place your fingers here on your vocal cords, you will feel no movement and hear no sound coming from here. Everything is coming from your mouth. K, k. The same happens with the F sound, like the word laugh. Now, although laugh is spelled with a GH at the end, it's pronounced F. Now, it's very unusual in English that a GH is pronounced F, but it happens every so often. So note that this is an F sound. So notice with the F, again, you have no vibration and no sound coming from your vocal cords. And the same happens with the S sound. So take a look at each of these words from the story, and you'll notice that ask, when we add the ED to the end, is pronounced asked, asked. Look, looked. Laugh, laughed. And bless, blessed. Several endings are voiceless endings, so you'll sometimes hear the ED pronounced as T with that E silent again. And here are several sounds that are voiceless in English. Ch, f, k, p, s, sh. And some common words that end with these sounds, the CH or ch sound. Watch. Add an ED and it becomes watched. Approach, approached. Laugh, laughed. And here are some more. K, a very common voiceless ending. Work becomes worked. Talk, talked. P, stop, stopped. Develop, developed. S, another very common ending. Practice, practiced. Increase, increased. And sh, sh, finish, finished. So again, with these very common endings, the K and the S, you'll want to make sure you include more practice for those sounds because they're very, very common. So once you're comfortable with these 3 rules for the pronunciation of ED endings, please complete all the assignments in the workbook. You'll find a variety of entertaining ways to practice these important sounds. Thanks for watching. Hello and welcome to our last section in the Important Sounds for Perfect Pronunciation course. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about 2 related sounds that are really important in English, the S and Z. Both S and Z are key sounds in English. However, many English learners often omit these endings or pronounce all S endings with an S sound, even though a large number of them should be pronounced with a Z sound. As you probably already know, English spelling can at times be inconsistent and confusing. And unfortunately, this can be the case with S and Z sounds. So I'm going to give you some rules and word lists to help you out. The S and Z sounds are almost identical in English. There is only one difference, and that's voicing. So if you can pronounce the S, you can easily learn to pronounce the Z as well. Let's take a look at both of these sounds. For both S and Z, the tongue almost touches the front teeth and alveolar ridge, but not quite. Take a look at the picture. It's not quite touching your front teeth or roof of your mouth, but it's almost there. The sides of your tongue are pressed against the upper side teeth. And you'll notice that the air stream flows through the groove in the middle of your tongue. Now, that is what both of these sounds have in common, their mouth position and airflow. What's different, however, is that the S sound is a voiceless sound, which means only air is coming through your mouth. You should have no sound coming from your vocal cords. In English, we usually think of the S sound as a sound a snake makes. Here are some common words that begin with the S sound. Say, system, city, and center. And here are some common words that end with an S sound. Price, class, office, and case. You'll notice that these words could be spelled in different ways. The S is not always spelled with an S. Sometimes it is, but you might also see a double S, an SE at the end of words, or at the beginning of words, CE or CI. CE is also a common end for words. Now the Z has the exact same mouth position as the S, but you'll need to turn your vocal cords on for this one. You should hear that little motor vibrating in your throat as you're pronouncing the Z. And we usually think of this sound as the sound that a bee makes. Zzz. Can you feel the vibration in your throat? Zzz. Zzz. Compare that to S. 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 You just hear the S coming out the air, correct? You don't hear any sound from your vocal cords. It's uncommon for words to begin with Z, but we do have a few that you may see occasionally, such as zone, zoo, or zipper. Sometimes we have a Z sound in the middle of words. It's most often spelled with an S, but occasionally you'll see a Z as well. For example, reason, visit, easy, organization, and puzzle. Common words that end in a Z sound. There are very many words that end in a Z sound in English. For example, was, his, please, exercise, always, freeze, jobs, and jazz. And again, notice the variation in their spelling. They can be spelled with a Z, a double Z, which is not very common, but occasionally you'll see it, a ZE, an S, or an SE. Now let's do a little bit of auditory discrimination practice to see if your ear can pick up these two different sounds. Again, do you hear a word in column A or B? Make sure that you find this chart in your workbook before we continue. I'm just going to say each word once, so it will go by very quickly. But I'm sure you'll need to listen again and again to make sure you've got them all. So here goes. Number 1, raise. 2, phase. 3, price. 4, fleece. 5, advise. 6, chance. 7, plays. 8, eyes. All right, let's do a little bit more auditory discrimination. This time we're going to do it in sentences. So in each sentence, you'll see a pair of words. Circle the one you hear. Now, important to note, the first one in each pair is said with an S sound. S. The second one is said with a Z sound. Notice the spelling in the S and Z is not at all helpful and will not at all tell you whether it's an S or a Z. So notice, it's the first one of the pair that's an S, the second one that's a Z sound. All right, number 1. We're going to dance. 2, bring me the sauce. 3, I'm tired of the lies. 4, we want peace. 5, what do you think of the violins? 6, I don't want a magazine. 7, police, open the door. As usual, you will find the answers to each of these activities in the answer key of your workbook. Make sure to check your answers. Listen again if there were any you didn't get right. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode. Hello again. In this lesson, I'm going to continue talking about the S and Z sounds, but we'll focus on them here as word endings. This topic is closely related to the ED endings that you saw in the last section. Again, you'll find that there are 3 possible pronunciations for the S ending, and the rules for pronouncing each are very similar to the ED ending pronunciation rules. S endings are extremely common in English, and omitting them or pronouncing them incorrectly will make your English seem very low level. Part of improving your spoken English is making sure to use basic everyday grammar correctly. You don't need to spend lots of time on advanced grammar concepts in English, but there are some key basics you need to master. Now, not all grammar mistakes have the same weight, but correctly using ED and S endings would be considered basic knowledge of English to native speakers. So omitting them is a critical error, since it sends the message that your English is at a beginning level, even if you're an advanced speaker. Now let's take a quick look at all the reasons to add S to words in English before moving on to the pronunciation part. We add S to words for several different reasons. First, to make words plural. Take the word year, we make it plural by adding S, years. Book, books. We also use S in the third person singular, which just means the he, she, it forms for present tense verbs. For example, I say, but she says. We look, it looks. We use S a lot in contractions with is and has. She is becomes she's. What is what's. And finally, we use S for the possessive in English. Karen's phone or mom's coat. So you can see that we put S at the ends of words for many basic grammatical functions in English. In this next activity, I'm going to tell you a cute story. I want you to follow along with me, paying particular attention to the S endings. Now I want you to go ahead and stop the video after you've heard it once and listen again until you have a good feeling for how to pronounce each of the S endings. So here's the story. It's called Museum Hires Puppy to Protect Its Valuable Artwork from Bugs. We're in love with the Boston Museum of Fine Art's newest hire. Meet Riley, a 12-week-old Weimaraner. Riley's job is to sniff out bugs and other critters that could potentially damage valuable artwork in the museum. The museum's deputy director, Katie Getchell, told the Boston Globe that insects are an ongoing concern for museums. It's really a trial pilot project. We don't know if he's going to be good at it, said Getchell. But it seems like a great idea to try. No technology is as powerful at detecting scents as the nostrils of dogs, which have long been trained to sniff out explosives, missing people, bed bugs, and cancer, among other things. If Riley is successful at his job, museum officials would attempt to share what they learn with other museums and organizations that need to protect textiles, Getchell said. Now, if you need to, stop here and go back and listen again and again until your ear has picked up the true pronunciation of these words with the S ending. Did you notice that almost all of the S ending words were pronounced with a Z sound? That's the most common way to pronounce an S ending in English. So just like ED endings, the pronunciation of the S or ES ending is dictated by the last sound of the word before adding the S or ES to it. And here's rule number 1 for determining the pronunciation of an S or an ES ending. If the word ends in a voiced sound, pronounce the S or ES as a Z, since Z is also a voiced sound. And if you remember, voiced sounds have movement and sound coming from your vocal cords, which you can feel right here in the hollow of your neck. If you place your hand here, you can feel the vibration. Zzz, zzz, zzz. Let's go ahead and take those S-ending words from the story and look at them a little more carefully. Now, the word bug ends in a G, a G sound, and that's a voiced sound. So when we add an S to that, in this case making it plural, that S will sound like a Z because G is also a voiced sound. Bugs, bugs. In the next example, Riley, the name of the dog, ends in a vowel sound, E. Vowels are always voiced. And in this case, Riley's is possessive. So go ahead and add a Z, a voiced Z sound, to the end of the vowel, Riley's. Our next voiced word was museum. That ends in an M. M is also a voiced sound, so add a Z to make it plural, museums. Official also ends in a voiced sound, L. So again, we're going to add a Z to make it plural, officials. The largest number of endings in English are voiced, so you will most often pronounce the S or ES as a Z sound, making sure that the E is silent if there is one. The following sounds are all voiced sounds that will require that Z ending. B, D, G, L, M, N, ing, r, v, and all vowel sounds. So let's take a look at some of those top 500 most common words that end with a voiced sound in English. Job, when we make it plural, adding the S to it, will sound like jobs. Words ending in D. Kid becomes kids. Hand, hands. Ending in G, drug, drugs. Ending in L, people, peoples. School, schools. And there's more. The ones ending in M, home becomes homes. Program, programs. N, reason, reasons. Million, millions. NG ending, thing becomes things. R ending, number, numbers. Leader, leaders. V ending, give, gives. Leave, leaves. And all of those different vowel endings, here are a few examples. Know, knows. Try, tries. Issue, issues. City, cities. And again, the starred ones are the most common endings you're likely to encounter. An M, N, R in all vowel endings. So if you would like to focus on something specific in your practice, focus on words ending in those letters more than anything else. Okay, this is a good place to take a break. But please stay tuned for the next lesson when I teach you when to use the other two pronunciations for the S ending. Don't forget to complete the workbook assignments before moving on, and make sure you're singing every day to improve your overall English pronunciation. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Well, can you believe it? This is the last lesson of the course. In this lesson, we're going to keep working on those S endings. Now, let's find out when to use those other two pronunciations for the S endings. Rule number 2. If a word ends in a voiceless sound, pronounce the S or ES ending as an S or a S, since S is also a voiceless sound. Now, if you remember, voiceless sounds only have air passing through your mouth. You should not hear or feel any vibration from your throat. Let's take a look at some of those words from the story that I told you in the last lesson. It. It ends in a T. T is a voiceless sound, so we're going to go ahead and add S to it. It's. And coincidentally, all of the voiceless ending words that added S to them in the story had T endings. So you can tell that T is a pretty common ending for words in English. So each of these words, we're just going to pronounce the S as S. Let's go through them quickly. It, its. Art, arts. Insect, insects. Scent, scents. Now let's take a look at some top 500 words that end in voiceless sounds. First, the F. We have the word wife and staff. Now there's a special note about the word wife. Wife ends in an F. So if you say something like my wife's car, you're going to add a voiceless S to that. But wife is one of those words that has an irregular plural. The plural of wife is wives. So if you're talking about 2, 3, or more wives, you're actually going to change the F to a V. The V is a voiced sound, so the S ending will be pronounced as a Z. So in this case, plural is wives, but possessive is wifes. Now staff is normal, it's staff, and the plural is staffs. Words that end in K, think becomes thinks, ask, asks. Words that end in P, keep, keeps, group, groups. Words that end in T. Night becomes nights, and result, results. And that T, as you know, is very, very common. As you've seen from the story, there are a whole lot of words that end in T in English. So again, make sure this is a high priority when you're studying. All right, we've come to our third and last rule for the pronunciation of S-ES endings. If the word ends in a sibilant sound, pronounce the S or ES completely as is, adding that extra syllable to the word. Now you're probably wondering what a sibilant is. Now a sibilant is a word that has a lot of noisy air passing through the mouth. They make hissing or buzzing sounds. Think about snakes and bees, like s, z. You hear a lot of noisy air coming through the mouth. When that happens, we're going to go ahead and add that extra syllable to the end of the word. Sibilant sounds include ch, j, s, sh, x, z. The spellings for these sounds may vary, however. I'll go ahead and show you on our next slide. So some top 500 words that have sibilant endings are ending in a CH. Your spelling can be CH or TCH. So teach will sound like teaches. Watch, watches. The J sound, which is typically spelled DGE or just GE, as in page, pages, challenge, challenges. The S, again the S, which can be spelled a variety of ways. Words often end in CE in English, like voice and experience. Their plurals would be voices and experiences. S can also be spelled as a double S at the end of words. Pass, passes, process, processes. S may also be spelled as SE, as in course, courses, sense, senses. Then we have SH. SH is usually spelled with an SH. There are a few exceptions to that rule, but usually when it comes at the end of the word, it's pretty faithfully SH spelling. So finish would be finishes, establish, establishes. Z, as you know, can be spelled a variety of ways. It can be spelled with a ZE, like size, which would be sizes. Realize, realizes. Can also be spelled with an SE ending, as in use, which would be uses, and lose, loses. The spelling of the S-ES sound is almost always ES. But that doesn't mean that every time you see an ES, it will be pronounced is with the extra syllable. Sometimes it's just Z or even S. So be careful with that. Now in this activity, I'd like you to follow along with me as I read an excerpt from an interview with a famous actor. In your workbook, I'd like you to make a note above each of the words that ends with S. I want you to note whether it's an S ending, a Z, or an is. Please use the correct IPA symbol to note that. So please locate that in your workbook before I get started here. Someone asked Drew Carey during a live online interview, "What's your very best life advice?" This was his response. Learn how to set goals. That's the key to everything. That includes designing your own success. You define what the goal is. It's not somebody else's goal. It's yours. People think automatically, "Oh, I don't want to make money or reach other people's goals." It's not what your relatives want you to do or what society wants you to do. All goal setting is figuring out what you want to do with your life. So whether you want to be a CEO or the happiest hippie in the world, set goals. I was totally lost in my life until I figured out how to set goals. So from my perspective, it's the most important thing you can do. There are tons of goal-setting books out there, and you can get good advice from any of them. Now again, you'll probably want to hear that several times, so just go ahead and rewind and listen again and again until you feel comfortable with your answers, and then check them in the back of the workbook. I have one last note for you about S endings. So S endings are often pronounced Z, as we've talked about before, but this happens especially in our most common words. These words are very high frequency words in English. Take a look and notice the Z ending, even though they're spelled with an S. Is, was, his, as, these, those, does, always, sometimes, because, please, goes, whose, suppose, exercise, choose, cause, lose, raise, rise, phrase, nose, rose, disease, Chinese, series, close, use. Now you'll note there are a couple of words with little stars at the end. You'll note they are pronounced Z when they are verbs. They are pronounced S when they are nouns or adjectives. Congratulations! We've come to the end of the section and the end of the course. Thank you so much for sticking through it until the very, very end. I really hope you learned a lot in this course. But this is not the end. You'll find several interesting and fun activities in your workbook to practice S endings. Don't forget to do them all so you can really master these concepts and sounds. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in another course. Congratulations on completing the course. I'm proud of you for making it all the way through. You learned a lot in this course. As you know, these classes were focused on specific difficult sounds. But what's actually more important to understandable spoken English is the overall rhythmic and melodic aspects of the language, such as word and sentence stress, linking words, contractions and reductions, grouping words correctly, pausing in the right places, and the rise and fall of your voice. Please join me in my series of courses, The Rhythm and Melody of American English, where you'll master all of these aspects of perfect American speech. And please remember that I'm here for you on your journey to speak clear, understandable English. Don't hesitate to message me if I could be of further help to you. And I'm also happy to connect with you on Facebook and LinkedIn. And don't forget to check out my YouTube channel, where you get a free new lesson every Friday. Best wishes for success in speaking perfect American English.